Welcome to the Creative Community Podcast presented by Destination Arete. I'm David.
And I'm Mark. And as brothers, David and I grew up together telling stories for over 15 years. We told stories everywhere, all places, anytime we could. And as adults, we want to continue telling stories together. And the coolest part is, I think, we want to invite you in to our Brothers Brain Trust.
Yeah, that's why we started the podcast, was to kind of give you guys an idea of where we started and the stories that influenced us growing up, and then to continue telling our story together. And it's been fun so far, and it's still fun. And I'm looking forward to where it goes from here.
And what that kind of boils down to is our mission statement, which we say is we are building a community of people who work together to find creative solutions to tell inspirational stories. And that's what David and I are going to do today.
Yeah, from time to time, you'll hear us interview creatives on this podcast. You've probably heard some of our older episodes. We had 2 solid years of interviews, which were just jam-packed full of great stuff, and we've got more coming. But today, we are going to play a game. And before we get into that game and introduce it, Mark, I wanted to ask you a question. I know I texted you about this a little bit, and you may say, oh, I don't really have an answer for you, but have you noticed anything about the idea of story influencing every aspect of your everyday life? I'm talking about from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. Have you seen story play a role in that, or what have you been observing?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to read a book recently that was given to me by a friend, and it talked about how people at their core are we love things more than we think things. So we are function more based on what we love than what we think. Oftentimes when you go throughout your day, you're on autopilot. You know, you're not consciously being like, I am going to eat this for lunch. You get to lunch and you're like, what do I want for lunch? I really want that. Okay, go. They talked about that in the context of your spiritual life and how it's like your spiritual life is actually about God retraining your loves, like the things that you really do love. And how he does that is he invites you to be restoried. He invites you into a different narrative than the narrative that the world offers. So it was talking about that and how specifically how worship plays a role in that. In like every day, every time you go to church, that's what you're doing is you're playing a character in the restoring process that God is doing in your heart. And so it was just an encouragement along those lines to like look for that. So look for opportunities for what the world tells you about yourself. So they might say you're a consumer, but what God tells you is you're actually a human being created in the image of God. Oftentimes, a lot of the things that we run into is because we are either being a character in the wrong story, or we're acting in the story that God has for us in the wrong way. So that was kind of interesting. And that's really changed my perspective of like like you said, when I wake up, trying to figure out, okay, what role do I play in the story that God has for me today that is ultimately his story? So that's been something that I feel like has been helpful. And again, just from that book.
Yeah, I think you summed it up. I don't have anything I don't have anything to expand upon that idea. What I have been learning is life really is about the story that you tell yourself. You can tell yourself a detrimental story over and over and over and live it out and believe it. And then you will wake up one day and realize this is the climax of that story, or this is the rising action of that story. And I think I've just noticed that everything is telling me a story. I mean, from the bumper stickers on people's cars to the way that they drive, to what they are wearing that day, to the way that they present themselves. They are telling you their story in the way that they speak about themselves and the way they speak about others. Everything that you consume has story to it, whether you think it's just a news update or a highlight reel or a piece of music. I mean, everything has story to it, and everyone who created it or everyone who participated in it has a story or is telling a story or is part of a story. And I think the biggest thing for me has just been, what story am I telling myself about who I am and what I'm doing in life and why I'm doing it, and how competent I feel about it and how confident I am that I'm supposed to be doing it. And I mean, I can just go on and on and on here, but I've started to just say to myself, okay, the story of my life is, and then actually fill in the blanks with the things that maybe are not currently the way that I want them to be. And that's from a perspective of professionally, personally, spiritually. I mean, you have to tell yourself listen, I'm not where I want to be in this area of my life, but it's not because I cannot get there, and it's not because I'll never get there, and it's not because and this is not affirmations, and I'm not talking about speaking things into existence here, and I'm not talking about I want to be an NBA player, so I'm going to tell myself the story every day, because guess what, I fell into that trap when I was a kid. I told myself the story that I was going to be, star high school basketball player. Never happened because I was believing the wrong story, and I was telling the wrong story. And I think it's good as we get older to start recognizing quickly what the right story is and what the wrong story is, and what's a possible story and what's not a possible story. That's just what I've been observing, and I've been observing the stories people are telling themselves. And sometimes it makes me hurt a little. It's like, oh man, there's a story that you could tell yourself here, and you could tell others that it's wonderful, and instead you're choosing this one. And I wish that I had like the omniscient power to just step in and save them from themselves, which I can't. I am a mere mortal. I bleed when they cut me. So it's not my role, but whenever I get the chance to help someone with their story or to talk to someone about their story, then it makes me excited because I can encourage them. I mean, that's what I was put on earth to do, was to encourage people. And like, I have started telling myself that story. Okay, what are you going to do today that's going to encourage someone? And who are you drawing that encouragement from? And what are you doing to fill that tank up? And how is that story going to live out when you interact with people?
That's so cool. I love what you said about how everything that everyone does is telling the story of who they are. And you mentioned bumper stickers. And that's something that I really love, is being behind people and seeing their bumper stickers, because you have to think. I always like to think through that person finding that, whether online or in person, purchasing it, exchanging physical money for it, or swiping their card, and then tearing it up and applying it. And with certain ones, you're like, man, that was a lot of action steps that you took to say that. So I love thinking through that, because you really get into their headspace of like, man, I love just observing that about people and thinking, man, like they put that on there, or did they get it from a friend? Like there was one guy he had Florida license plates, Pittsburgh Steelers bumper sticker, with a like death to heroin sticker. And I was like, and we were in the car, and I was like, okay, so what is he from Pittsburgh? Did someone in his family do heroin, or is he a recovering heroin addict? Like, and just going through, but like thinking through him, like at each step, purchasing one of those items is just so fascinating to me.
And have you ever driven past someone after seeing their bumper stickers and they rarely ever do not match the bumper stickers, right?
Yep.
Like whatever you see as the bumper sticker or the decal, when you get to next to them, you're like, oh yeah, like there is a person that is always on my way home from work from me, and they have this Jeep Life with these glasses and this lip and this messy top knot bun. And whenever I pass her, I'm like, I knew that. I forgot that's what she looked like, but I remember now. She just looks like that, and it never fails. They match the bumper sticker that they have on the back of their car, because that's the story that they've chosen to tell about themselves, and they are living it out. And so I want to challenge ourselves, you and me, and our listeners, to really evaluate the story that you're telling yourself. Are you telling yourself a story of defeat and of loss and of incapability of overcoming these things? Or are you telling yourself a story of achieving victory through the power of the Holy Spirit? A story of just one foot in front of the other. Like, today's a new day. We're going to make another step forward. And it's not a cure-all. There are lots of other things that go into making your story better. And I don't want to diminish any of that by saying like, this is the way to do it. But like, start here. And as you start telling yourself this story, then your story will start to improve, and you'll start to see what those steps are. You'll start to recognize like, oh, I need to take this next step. I need to do this next thing. I need to go talk to this next person, read this next book, memorize this next verse, take this next medicine, whatever it is that needs to help you in your story. You will start, the Lord will start to bring it clearer and clearer as you start to tell yourself, I am the Lord's, and he wants his best for me. And right now this is it. And it's going to get better if I continue following him.
That's awesome.
Well, I feel like we could stop the podcast right there. I mean, this has just been we are just experts in this, Mark. So I don't know. That's the story I'm telling.
I was gonna
But
say, yeah, I'm super convicted by what you said. I got it. Like, I'm after we get done recording, I'm like, okay, David, I need to talk through some things with you.
Well, my hours are posted on the door, so you can schedule a time then. But yeah, let's play a game. We told the people we're going to play a game. The title of the episode's a game, so let's play a game. I sent you 4 different categories, and I asked you to rank. What did you do? Top 5 or top 10?
I did top 5.
Okay, cool. Then we will do top 5 of each of these things, and we'll see how many of them we'll do. Maybe we'll just do 2 to start out. Who knows? We'll do them all. I want to help you and me and everybody listening understand. Once again, story plays a part in everything. So I sent you a list of breakfast burrito ingredients because I know from the spies that I have on campus that you're a big breakfast burrito guy. And I don't know if you do breakfast burritos more than just at breakfast, but I know you at least at breakfast. You're a big fan of them. So I sent you a big list of ingredients. That wasn't an exhaustive list. There were other things that you could have included. There was actually some that I realized I left off after I made my top 5. But yeah, we're going to talk about our top 5 breakfast burrito. And I guess what we're going to do is we're going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How do you want to build this burrito?
Well, for me, I do like some of these definitely are like 5 through 1s. You know, like I want to start with a 5. I'm really passionate about my 1 because like I think it's the best, and I have a case for it. So I'll probably start with my 1. But
okay, let's do that then.
Okay.
Just so everybody knows, the tortilla is not an ingredient because
Correct.
The tortilla is required to make it a burrito. So that is duh. Like that's okay. We have the tortilla on the plate. So I'm going to start with I guess I'll start with my 1. For me, the number 1 ingredient for a breakfast burrito is eggs. You have to scramble eggs, and that is where you start. That's the number 1 most important ingredient. If you handed me something and said this is a breakfast burrito and I do not have at least egg whites, then I will be like, no, this is a taco or a normal burrito that you took the breakfast part out of.
Right.
This is just a burrito. Thank you for this delicious thing. It tastes great.
Yeah.
But it's not breakfast. This is not breakfast for dinner. This is dinner in my hand.
Yeah.
So, all right, Mark, what's your top 1?
No. Okay. So mine is eggs also, but for a different reason. I did mine in the order that they should be the most in the burrito.
Oh.
So so mine is eggs because I would go to the dining common and I would make myself a breakfast burrito. And of course, I just load up on all the good stuff and I would skimp on the eggs. And then I would get back to my chair and I would eat it. And I would be like, this just doesn't taste like the burritos from where I like to get breakfast burritos when I go out, you know? And I was like, why is that? This is so weird. I was putting eggs on it, you know, but I was like loaded up on bacon and other stuff. Sorry, that was I gave it away. But for one of my others, I was like, this is not good. So one day I just put full of eggs and I kind of filled it with egg first. And I was like, man, I don't have much room for anything else. So I just sprinkled a tiny bit of cheese and just a little bit of bacon on there, folded it up, and it tasted amazing. And I was like, that's the key. The key to a great breakfast burrito is the eggs. So if you were to ever go to a store and get one and unwrap it, I guarantee you would find 90% eggs and just little cheese. And so anyway, that's how I'm ranking them, is the majority of what I want in it to make it good.
Cool. Well, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is cheese. I really do think that in order to get that feeling, pardon the listeners, but sorry, I can't get it wet enough, but it has to squish. It has to squish when I bite into it. So, all
right. Well, my number 2 is bacon.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
We disagree on that one.
Because I could not literally because it's on my list, but I could go without cheese and still call it a breakfast burrito.
Okay. But
if there's not bacon, then I can't once again call it a breakfast burrito. I can call it an egg, because I've had breakfast tacos where it's egg and a different type of meat. And I'm I'm okay with this, but if it's not bacon, or like I think my 8th ingredient that I wouldn't have in my top 5 was ham. That was the only other meat on my list. So it was bacon and ham. So yeah, I got bacon on there. And because I think it's because growing up, mom would make a bunch of bacon and like grind it up, and it would be like bacon bits, and then she would put it in the refrigerator, and then like later in the week we would make breakfast burritos, and you would sprinkle bacon bits in your burrito and then wrap it up. So you would put it in the eggs themselves.
Right. Absolutely. Now, would you count? So if you got a breakfast burrito that had egg and ham in it, is it still a breakfast burrito to you, or is it something else? Does it just have to be pork? It just has to be something pork related?
I think pig related.
All right.
Because even sausage, I think, has pig in it. So.
Oh, so sausage counts. Okay.
Yeah, but that's like way down on, like that didn't even make my top 10. I don't need sausage to have a breakfast burrito. So, all right. My number 3 you've already given is cheese, just because I do like cheese. And so if you're like saying like 85% has to be eggs, I think there's like 5% bacon and then like 2% cheese or something like that. I don't know how we would divvy this out, but I like cheese. Yeah. I cannot deny it.
No, I get it. I totally get it. It was my number 2. My number 3 is bacon. So ours is spot there. Because if I get too much bacon in it, it ruins it too much crunchy. So I found that to be the case with the bacon bits that I have at my disposal. So I find that I would rather have it squishy than crunchy. So
gotcha. Okay.
Sorry, I'm not making this sound appetizing at all. I promise.
No, it's okay.
Amazing.
Give us our number 4. I'm curious to see where we deviate.
My number 4 is potatoes.
Oh.
Because I went to this place called the Shark Bite, which is just like a little hut on the beach, and they put like tater tots in there, and holy cow, it was so good. So good. So. But
how recently was this?
Like a year ago. Like literally, like it's still with me. Yeah, I still think about it, but it's like an hour away, so I can't go. But and I think this is kind of where you and I link back up, which is potatoes to me are very negotiable though. Like eggs, bacon, cheese, that's the necessity. But if I get then to like have an extra treat, I get potatoes.
Yeah, because see, my number 4 is specifically hash browns.
Okay.
So like I need the potatoes to be hashed. I don't want them to be chunky. I want them to be browned in the pan and then either molded and like placed on top of the eggs and wrapped up so that when you bite, it's like a layer of hash brown and a layer of eggs and cheese and bacon. Or I want them to be in there like as a crunchy, like I want a little bit more crunchiness from my potatoes too. So yeah, I got it. All right. And then my number 5 is I want some salsa. I'm not usually a spicy person, but I am learning to be more spicy in my foods that I eat as I get a little older. And so for me, a breakfast burrito, if you've got eggs, bacon, cheese, hash browns, put a little salsa in there, it gets you some more vegetables, and gets you a little bit of a flavor. I eat salsa with my scrambled eggs now, and I'll even put, my 10th ingredient was Taco Bell mild sauce. Like if I like, after I've created the perfect burrito of my 10 ingredients, like the 10th one is just a little mild sauce every bite, just like sprinkle it on there. So, but yeah, salsa is my number 5. Those are my top 5 ingredients: eggs, bacon, cheese, hash browns, and salsa in that order. So, but yeah, that's for me is like the perfect burrito if I can only pick 5 ingredients.
Yeah. My last one is hot sauce.
Okay.
So pretty similar, but just a little bit probably more spicy than yours. So my top 5 is eggs, cheese, bacon, potatoes, hot sauce.
What kind of hot sauce?
Just the kind that mom had growing up.
Oh,
like
okay.
I would see her using it and I never got it. But when I was a little bit older, one time I just kind of put my finger and like licked it and I was like, this is really good. And then but I'll have to ask her what it is and get a hold of.
Well, and if any of our listeners have recommendations for types of salsa or hot sauce to try.
Yeah. Or even if you have like a dark horse breakfast burrito ingredient that's like, no guys, you don't even know, like send it our way. We're connoisseurs.
All right. So let's go to our second top 5 list. And for our listeners, you might be wondering, well, guys, you just had the same list of ingredients for breakfast burrito. Like, what does that prove? Well, I'll tell you in a second. But next, let's rank the free bread you get at restaurants, Mark. I sent you, I think, 11 restaurants. Mm-hmm. And we're going to give you the top 5. I ranked them 1 through 10 just because I had strong feelings, but Give me your number one your number one restaurant bread that you get for free. And for our listeners' sake, these are going to be chain restaurants. I had someone tell me this weekend, there's this place near my house, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. I totally get it. I'm sure it is the best bread you've ever eaten, but for a global audience like we have, we got to do chain restaurants. So most of these are North American based. So for any of our listeners overseas, you'll have to just come visit us.
Do you have the list of the options you gave me?
Oh yeah, I do. You want me to read that off?
Yeah, I think that might just be helpful. That way everyone knows what we're working with. All
right, cool.
Otherwise, I think people will be screaming in their seats that we missed one.
Yeah, so I found this list online in a website. So let me read it to you in the order the website gave it to me. Cheddar Bay biscuits at Red Lobster, the Italian bread at Carrabba's, the biscuits or the cornbread at Cracker Barrel, the rolls with cinnamon butter at Texas Roadhouse, the breadsticks at Fazoli's, the pumpernickel loaf, which is very dark brown bread at Outback Steakhouse, the breadsticks at Olive Garden, those are free and bottomless, the cheddar biscuits at Ruby Tuesday, and then the loaf of rosemary bread with dipping oils at Macaroni Grill. We've got an oat baguette and French baguette at the Cheesecake Factory. There's a dark bread and a light bread. And then O'Charlie's gives you rolls covered in butter. So those are the, I think, 11 or 10 restaurants, and Mark and I did our top 5. So Mark, why don't you give me number 5 this time around? We'll go 5 through 1. Right. That way we'll build up suspense.
Yeah, for sure. So number 5 on my list has to be Outback Steakhouse. I love that dark bread. It's just, it gets you every time. And for me, I feel like it's good because this is going to be controversial, but I feel like I don't like it so much that I fill up on it. I feel like it's a good balance. So
interesting. Mm-hmm. You don't like it so much that you fill up on it. Okay. Right. And it comes warm, put the butter on it. And the nice thing about this list is that anywhere you go in the country, you go to one of these restaurants and the food, this food's going to be the same. Mm-hmm. Like this bread loaf that Outback has is going to be the same. Nice.
Yeah. What's yours?
My number 5 is those cheddar biscuits at Red Lobster. I recently was taken to Red Lobster for a work lunch or something, and just forgot how good those they're just so good. I mean, there's a reason there's like all these recipes and copycat, and like I have a friend who spent 6 months trying to perfect it, and then they realized that Red Lobster actually posted the recipe online, so but yeah, it was a dark day. But those cheddar biscuits, that's my 5th one. It's really good. My number 4 hurts my soul to say it out loud, but the dark brown bread at Cheesecake Factory is the only food that I like at Cheesecake Factory. I tear it apart. I put the butter in it. I let it melt, and then I will eat the whole loaf if Tabitha doesn't stop me, if my wife doesn't stop me. So that's my number 4 is the Cheesecake Factory dark brown bread. I think it's pumpernickel or something like that. Well, or no, that's the pumpernickels at Outback. I think it's like some sort of baguette, like oat baguette.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Baguette. Yeah. What's your number 4?
Well, number 4 is on there, but it's a question. I have Cracker Barrel. I have never been given free bread at Cracker Barrel. Did I miss something?
Well, literally all but one of their meals comes with biscuits.
Oh,
have you ever gone to Cracker Barrel and ordered something and they didn't bring biscuits with it?
I mean, pancakes, but I think.
But someone else ordered and there was enough.
Them. Yeah.
There was enough biscuits at the table from what other people ordered.
Okay.
So, technically, yeah, you're paying for them, but the biscuits come with the meal.
Okay, I see. All right. Well, then Cracker Barrel biscuits, number 4 for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
They're pretty good.
Yeah, they are. Number 3 for me is a write-in. It's a dark horse.
Okay.
And I don't know how it wasn't included. I don't know how.
Well, then I'll tell you my number 3 real quick because it was Outback Steakhouse and that pumpernickel loaf. So I've got Red Lobster, Cheesecake Factory, Outback Steakhouse, pumpernickel loaf. So now give me your write-in.
Wait, number 3, fairly obvious to me, Lambert's.
Oh,
thrown right at your face. Like,
good
free
call.
Is all get out. You just show up and they go, and they baseball pitch it to you.
So for our listeners who are not from the Gulf Coast or the mountains of Missouri, please share what Lambert's might be.
Oh, it's a regional restaurant?
Yeah, there's only 2 locations.
Okay. I'm sorry. Only 2 I'm so sorry. Okay, no wonder it wasn't included in your list. Lambert's is literally called Lambert's, the home of the thrown rolls. Like you walk in and you sit down at these booths that haven't been cleaned since the building was built, and it's all sticky, everything. And you sit down, and it is loud because there's people yelling at you, and someone walks by with a thing of apple butter, and they stick it in your face, and they go, "You want this apple butter?" And you say, yes. And someone walks
sorghum
by
molasses.
Sorghum molasses. So you want this, and they give it to you. And then there is a man or woman walking around with a bucket or a tray, and they have got these rolls that they look like a little chef's hat. They're like straight, and they got a little bump at the top. And they will, if you go like this, or maybe even if you don't, they will baseball pitch that sucker to you across the room, and you have to catch it and then bobble it and get it on your plate, and then put all the stuff on it that's coming to you. So I understand it's a little bit of a thing, but I feel like
they're good rolls,
they're just good.
It's two strikes, you're out too.
When like it's on your sign, it's good.
Yeah, it's two strikes, you're out too. Like if you drop one, they'll throw you another one from the same distance. But if you drop that one, they will not throw you anymore. They will bring them to your table. So, and I have a friend who every time we talk about Lambert's, they say, "Oh yeah, my brother put his hands up for them to throw the roll and then moved them at the last second, and it hit me in the face." And I've heard other people tell that same story too, where I wasn't paying attention and a bread hit me in the back of the head, or someone bobbled it and it went behind them into another seat. I mean, you see it all. But they come out of the kitchen and they say, "Fresh rolls." And then everybody's hands go up, and then they're just chucking them for like 5 minutes. There's just bread flying through the air. And then they go back in the kitchen for another round.
Yeah, it's true. So it's a reason to visit the mountains of Missouri or Alabama somewhere. It's great.
Yeah. Lambert's, go find it. It's just down home, old fashioned cooking. It's a huge plate of food you'll never finish. And the rolls are the size of your face, and they're amazing. So nice. Well, my number 2, you've mentioned already, but is Cracker Barrel's Biscuits. But I just put it on there because I think once every other month, I will just put my wife in the car and go to Cracker Barrel like on a Friday night because I want a biscuit. And I don't care what I put on it. If I just put butter, or if I put that blackberry jam that's just candy, or if I ask the waitress for honey, or if I snag a leftover bottle of maple syrup off of someone's table on the way in, like, I don't care what I put on that thing. I eat it plain. I eat the first one plain. When it comes out of the kitchen, I eat it hot and plain. And then I put stuff on, I put toppings on the rest. You sop up your eggs. I don't care what you're doing with that thing. It is so good. So good.
So good.
Oh.
I agree.
All right. What's your number 2?
My number 2 is, you're gonna laugh because it's probably not that great, but it's all for the boys. It's for nostalgia. It's literally Fazoli's.
Yeah.
Fazoli's breadsticks are bottomless. Like literally, they just keep coming to you. They're soft. They're always on point. They're always hot. And me and my friends in college, before our Fazoli's closed down, we would go, and first of all, on Sundays, you could get $3.99 baked spaghetti with bottomless breadsticks. Hey, you're a college student, you pay $4, you get your drinks free because you show your card from your school. Woo! Yeah, you best believe everyone was there. So, but then in the evening, sometimes we would go to Fazoli's and we would get baked spaghetti, and we would just sit till they closed. And I still have pictures of a white piece of paper that I had with drawings on it, but it was red because the Fazoli's lights were always red. And that's my memory of that before it closed down. So it was just good memories there with friends. But what were we doing there though? We were eating bottomless breadsticks. So that's why it makes number 2 on my list.
My Fazoli's story goes back to high school, because my basketball coach, if there was a Fazoli's within 25 miles of the interstate we were traveling on in either direction, we would get off and go there for dinner. And so I've eaten Fazoli's breadsticks in up to 4 states in the Midwest, maybe more. And at least one of our former podcast guests has eaten Fazoli's with me in up to 4 states in the Midwest. So yeah, those breadsticks are a nostalgia thing. And I haven't been to Fazoli's in years, but every time I see one, I'm instantly transported back to that time of my life. And yeah, it's a good time. So yeah, that one definitely for the boys.
Yeah.
Fazoli's
Did it make
is for
your
the
list
boys.
at all?
It was after number 5, but
Okay, so it was
it,
number 6.
yeah, just because I think I like rolls better than I like breadsticks. However, I say that, and my number 1 is Olive Garden's breadsticks
Oh,
because I have discovered recently that probably the most tasty thing I've ever tasted in the world is you get some soup from Olive Garden and then you just dip breadsticks in it until it just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and then you just get another breadstick and it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and you don't actually ever eat the soup. You just dip the bread in it and get it soggy, and like it is like the most delicious thing. You get the minestrone or the other Italian flavored soup from them, like not the cream flavored, not the cream based soups, the ones with the vegetables and the broth. You just your breadstick starts out about that long and it just gets shorter and shorter and shorter. I don't know where it goes, but it's gone. And that's my number 1, like just for the experience of like I had someone got us breadsticks and salad and soup for work, like to go one time. They brought it to the office, and I was just like, "Is anybody else gonna eat this other breadstick?" And I just kept like, I think I had like 3 breadsticks with my soup. I never touched my salad. I'm paying for it now, but man, it was a good time.
that's awesome. Well, so list your list 1 through 5.
All right, 1 through 5. Olive Garden breadsticks number 1, Cracker Barrel biscuits number 2, Outback Steakhouse pumpernickel loaf 3, Cheesecake Factory dark brown bread 4, Red Lobster cheddar biscuits 5, and then
Okay.
that's my 5.
Yeah, my number 1 is Texas Roadhouse.
Mm.
The butter just makes it, that cinnamon butter. That is something that I will ruin my appetite. Like I talked about Outback, Texas Roadhouse, I will ruin my appetite faster than you. As fast as you can bring it, I will ruin it, like just all day. So that is my last one. I think that it really is that cinnamon butter that like pushes it over the edge to where it has to be my number 1.
Okay, so those are our 2 top 5 lists. We did breakfast burrito ingredients. We did the free bread. This is a food-based episode, Mark. I don't know if anybody listening noticed this, but we had a story for almost each item that we ranked, and a reason behind the story was the reason that we ranked it where we ranked it. And maybe it wasn't like a specific, I can pinpoint the date and time that this story happened, but there are stories in our minds when we think of that food item or when we think of that bread or we think of that restaurant. Like I literally 2 weeks ago said, "Hey, you want to go to dinner?" And she was like, "Sure." And I said, "Let's go to Cracker Barrel." And she said, "We have a gift card." And and we split a plate of biscuits. Like that's a story that happened to me. And so even with like the breakfast burrito ingredients, like you had a story that helped you decide how you were going to rank them. And you had several stories when you were talking about the bread. And that's what I wanted to help people see. Our conversation at the beginning, everything is a story. Well, yeah, everything in your life has a story to it. There's a story, there's a reason, there's a timeline, whatever story terminology you want to use. And I think it's fun to do exercises like this because it helps you figure out the stories that are important to you. And even when you're ranking meaningless things like the bread that you get at restaurants, why does BuzzFeed do lists, like ranking lists? It's because everybody has a story associated with something on that list, and if they rank it out of place, then all of a sudden it causes controversy. And we might get some feedback from our listeners on, you left off this restaurant from your top 5. It's like, well, tell us your story.
Yeah,
tell us why it belongs there.
No, I agree. And I find it really interesting, the stories even that it told about us. Like I think the breakfast burrito thing, you and I have shared breakfast burrito memories, like strong ones, and so I didn't find it surprising at all that our ingredients were strikingly similar, because I remember the burritos that we used to eat, and that's what they consisted of. And so whereas the restaurants, you and I don't have as many similar, like I've never been to Red Lobster with you. I've never been to, you know what I mean? Like I can count on one hand the number of times I've been to like Texas Roadhouse with you, maybe once, twice. So I think it's interesting how that list was very different because we've had different experiences. So I find that interesting. Even the stories we tell about the things play into the stories of who we are. So if you're doing character development or something like that, that's something I find really fascinating about a movie. Even I try to squeeze this into every episode. The Incredibles, where like Brad Bird knew those characters so well, like he could probably tell you what Bob's 5 favorite places, to get bread were, like versus Helen's, it's just incredible how, and he would have a story reason behind it, why he did.
I think that's what sets stories that last apart, is that there is a story reason for the things the characters are doing, and there's a story reason for the way that things are behaving. I mean, um, this is just secretly an Incredibles fan podcast, that we just talk about other things, and all of them circle back to Incredibles every time. But you think about Incredibles, I bet he even knew like where Bob's boss in the beginning went to lunch, like where he liked to get lunch, or if he liked to get lunch ordered in, or like I bet Brad Bird knew.
Right. And if he didn't know, you could figure it out. Like you could backtrack him, like he probably like somewhere neat and clean, because his desk is always in a row, so he's not going to eat at the
taco truck.
Right. He's not going to eat the taco truck or the hole in the wall down the street. He's going to go somewhere nice. He's going to have it delivered, and it's going to come in a styrofoam symmetrical thing. He's going to open it up, and it's all going to be in its little places. Like you can just think about, I don't want to make Brad Bird sound like a maniac. He's just like, oh, he's like these characters, but he could, because he developed them so well for story reasons, like you're saying, you can figure that stuff out. So cool.
Yeah. Well, Mark, top 4 places to listen to the podcast. I'll give them to you right now.
Okay.
SoundCloud, it's free.
All right.
Apple Podcasts, if you have an iPhone, it's free. I believe it's free on Spotify. You don't have to pay for Spotify to listen to it on there. And then it's also free on YouTube. So these are all tied for first, I think, because they're all free.
Right.
So yeah, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, YouTube, for more episodes like this, for interviews. And if you're on one of those platforms where you can leave a comment or review, please do so. It tells the algorithm that you enjoyed what you heard, and it tells us that you enjoyed what we heard. And if you're on YouTube, definitely leave us a comment with your top 5 favorite bread that you get at restaurants. And if there's a local place that we need to go check out, like in your area, please let us know, because we'd love to try it.
Yeah, for sure. And I find that so when I'm ranking like the types of people that I like, I find that the first like top tier are people who like share the podcast with friends.
Oh yeah.
And like and specifically friends who, might like enjoy the content. I find like number 2 are like people who share the podcast with people who might even not like the podcast. They share it anyway because they like to. I find number 3 are people who share it, and they share it with like their pets. Like they'll listen. They'll have them sit. They'll be like, "Oh, come on!" And they'll all gather their pets around to listen to episodes. And then I think the last 2, I'll probably group them together, but those people are just people who share the episodes with even inanimate objects. So, it could be a vacuum or something like that. But honestly, like just going down the list there, top 5 people who share the podcast are my favorite people.
Yeah, we got to stop and take a minute. It's going to be several weeks ago when this podcast comes out, but we got to thank Caleb for putting us in his list of recommended podcasts that he shared with his followers on Instagram. We really appreciate that. Like you are top tier of people on this list. We're really grateful, because that's how the word gets out. We can promote ourselves on social media all we want to, but you telling someone that the podcast meant something to you is what really goes a long way. Like when someone sends me a podcast episode, I listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like when my friends are like, "Hey, you should listen to this," I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. I should." I have no reason to doubt that you're wrong.
Yeah.
So, and then I would say, Mark, Facebook and Instagram, this is what people need to do. They need to go to Destination Arete, ARETE. And then what they'll do is when we post on Facebook and Instagram on our pages, you'll know there's another episode coming out, or maybe there's an episode that you missed and you're getting like the second wave of promotion. But then we have a Facebook group where I'll be posting more often, just with community ideas. I'll be probably posting some writing samples in there, and just an opportunity to talk about your favorite work and things that you're creating or things that you're consuming. And so Destination Arete, ARETE, that's where you can do community events and how you can participate in like our March Madness bracket and other polls and things like that. That's how you do that.
Yeah. And if you want to be the first to hear about these, destinationarete@gmail.com, if you'll send us an email to that address and just let us know that you want to subscribe to our newsletter. Our newsletter is a great place because when we do these creative exercises and stuff like that, oftentimes we will actually have more content than we can actually put in the episode. And so oftentimes we will, pose the rest of our questions that we had for each other or things like that. We'll provide that in the newsletter so you can email us back and participate, or post it on your social media and say, hey, Destination Arte did this thing. I'm participating in this, or they put out this prompt. I'm going to try it. So the newsletter is a great place to kind of get that info, and David does a great job of putting that together.
Yeah, in fact, newsletter subscribers received, when this episode came out that you're listening to right now, an opportunity to participate in an upcoming episode. We sent them a poll, and they got to vote in the poll, and we will be sharing their results in an upcoming episode. So if you want to be one of those people, you need to subscribe to the newsletter. Now, yeah. Mark, I'll let you continue and take it away.
Yeah, no problem. I was reading. Okay, just so the people at home know, I'm reading like my script, and all I see, because I can only see this much of my screen right here, and I just see
my hands going crazy.
That's so funny. Okay. All right. We'll be back with more craziness in 2 weeks. We'll either be interviewing someone or we'll be doing a creative exercise, but we'll see you then.